Hi, good evening, everybody. On behalf of JGU's Office of Alumni Relations, it gives me great pleasure to invite you, to welcome you to this webinar on inspiration. This is the first webinar, part of the Professional Advancement Series for JGU alumni. We are delighted to have three amazing speakers with us today who I'll briefly introduce. First of all, Maria Rodriguez, who is the Economic Advisor to the Chief of Staff of the Secretary of Foreign Affairs of Mexico. Also with us, Umang Pathak, who's a lawyer, social worker, and National President of Legal Awareness Council of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And we have Supriya Sopti Gupta, who's a broadcast journalist, a TV producer, and a founder of Mao Productions. This lineup of speakers actually is also testament to the power of alumni networks. Umang taught me many years ago when I was a student at Delhi School of Social Work, and Supriya and Maria I found both through my LSE alumni network. They're also fellow LSE alumni. And so this lineup is actually very fortuitous in that way, that it also tells us about how powerful, how big an influence places where we studied can continue to have on our lives, and really what an asset and what a wealth of resource an alumni network can be. I don't want to take much time here now saying more, because we're really here to listen to stories and learn from this fabulous panel of speakers. And so let me start by asking all of you to please summarize briefly your professional journey so far, and also say a little bit about your current projects and your current role. And why don't we start with Umang on this one?
Sure. Thanks, Kalyani. It's a pleasure being here and to reconnect with you, of course, to begin with. And after so many years, when I found you and saw you, Dr. Kalyani, that was quite an inspiration in that sense. Having taught you, it gave me a sense of pride, sense of ownership. So quickly, I started my journey being a science student, and then I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So the journey started from there. I did my bachelor's in botany honors, and then I completely got confused about what I wanted to do. So these things have to be said because there's a lot of pressure I see on students today that they, in preschool and school years, they have to decide their focus where they want to go. So I completely don't agree with that school of thought where you have to box yourself into thinking that where you can see yourself in 20 years. You don't know. Nobody knows after 20 years whether they are there or not. So then I dibbled around with computers and things like that for a year, and then I discovered law and human rights. I think that laid down the foundation of where I find myself today. I did my master's in social work from Department of Social Work, and again got an opportunity to teach there. And Dr. Kalyani has been my student during that time. So while after finishing masters, I started studying law because by that time I knew what I wanted to do. And the occupations are not occupations that you become that. You become a person and you start upgrading yourself. So for law for me was a means to the end. It was to know the place where we exist, to understand the systems, to be able to use them to make that impact that we are all trying to do in our own respective spheres. So while I was studying law, I worked towards right to information campaigns. The legislation had not come by then. We had a Delhi Act, which we used for filing applications to find out about, how the government systems were functioning, and, started questioning. And I think public scrutiny, as we all know, is a great means to ensure that things that we decide, the systems that we formulate, they function well. So RTI that way was a great, and still is a great means to that end. We used to do drive against bribe sort of campaigns, helping each citizen, whether it was about a passport being stuck, or a BPL card, or a ration card, whatever the, wherever the matter was stuck, we were holding hands and mobilizing in that sense to take that forward. Then quickly to just tell you that I, in my personal space, felt that I needed to be truly independent. So financial independence was the need of the hour for me. I joined the world of corporate, thinking that I'll take 10 years, make a house, make a car, and come back to this, what where truly I belong. So that took 10 years, of course. I learned a lot. I know how corporate system works, and it's a great system that can be applied to our voluntary sector and every other place where you can work in an organized structure to be able to make a bigger impact. So 10 years became 11, 11 became 12. And I think this is the COVID crisis, which sort of, truly got me back into action, so to speak. So this Women Indian Chamber of Commerce of Industry, that national president honorary title that I received, it was in peak of the COVID crisis. We were all locked in our houses. And I started speaking to women to compose my council, and I am telling you, it has been the most gratifying experience so far, which is why I sought Kalyani also, and realized that reconnecting with people that I had lost touch with, randomly finding strangers on LinkedIn or through references, to now we are working towards creating a national level, like from state councils, like a countrywide network of our council, Legal Awareness Council. The idea is to take the endeavor of our wiki forward, which is to focus on the women related themes. So I think I'll just stop here and let other people speak, and then we can talk more.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Umang. Why don't we go to Maria next?
Thank you, Kalyani. First of all, thank you for inviting me to speak. I am truly honored to be here. This is actually my first time speaking in front of an Indian audience, and I'm thrilled to be here. I am a career diplomat from Mexico and a first-generation university student, born and raised in a small town. I studied international relations in Mexico, and I have a master's in political science from the London School of Economics and a master's in international relations from Yale University. I graduated from the LSE in the middle of a huge economic crisis, and although my plan was to stay in London and work there for a few years, it was very difficult for me to find a position that could suit my needs. But fortunately for me, I heard of the examination to join the Mexican Foreign Service, and I took it, and I was admitted. So I've been in the Mexican Foreign Service for 11 years now. Since then, I have been posted primarily at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mexico City, where I have served as protocol officer and development cooperation specialist. Yet I have also been posted abroad at the Mexican consulate in Sao Paulo, Brazil for 4 years as cultural attaché. And since 2019, I have advised the Chief of Staff of the Foreign Affairs Minister on economic issues. In this role, I prepare policy papers and memos on various global issues for the minister. And I am also a contributor on strategic thinking for the Chief of Staff's office. And I assist the technology team of the ministry on analyzing the impacts of science, technology, and innovation, STI as it is called. And in the group, we are also responsible for helping build capacity, STI capacity within the ministry. And well, this is my story in 2 minutes.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Supriya, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to say thank you as well, Dr. Kalyani, for bringing me on as part of this excellent panel. The ladies are very accomplished, and it's good to be able to add to this. And it's nice to see a lot of women in the frame. Doesn't happen too often, but it's good to see it nonetheless. A little about me. I come from the media field, and I've been working as a broadcast journalist and a TV producer. I've now been in the field for about 15 years, a long time. I didn't, you just don't realize until you really calculate. We're old now, because I was listening to Umang's experience and I thought, wow, she doesn't look as old as that. And, with all of that wealth of experience, but it's been an interesting journey for me as well. I was 16 when I moved to London. I started my undergraduate degree there. That was what I went there for, and that was in journalism. And because Umang mentioned this, I thought it would be important, and there will be alumni listening in and people trying to figure out what to do with their lives. I just want to throw it there, that when I went, I used to watch a lot of TV with my father, and I used to watch the BBC's Hard Talk, which had a presenter called Tim Sebastian. And this is a very grilling program for a 16-year-old to watch. But, I would just be sitting there with my father, and he would be so gripped by it that this was the father and daughter bonding time. And I would be enamored looking at this man cornering the who's who of the world. And that's where I got this idea that I want to be a journalist. I want to be in that position of power where I can question somebody like that. And it just seemed very exciting at that point in time. And I was very lucky, because when I got to London and I got to university and I started my course, my first job was at the BBC. So it doesn't happen too often, but I think I was just in the right place at the right time. They were looking for students from South Asia. They were looking for students specifically from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh at that point in time, because this was for a network called the Asian Network. And there were a lot of Indians in my course, but I remember when they came out to offer this job, I just quickly noted down the email address, and I emailed that person, literally ran off from college and emailed somebody and said, I heard you in my university and I'd like to apply for this job. And he didn't email me back for days. Then I found out somebody else in my course, a really close friend of mine now, who lives in London. She'd got the job, and the job was to be a phone answerer on a radio program. It meant you go into work, you're answering shows for a radio show, you're answering calls on a radio show, and you're putting them on, for talk radio, basically. And I took that guy's number from her, and I just kept phone bashing. So I would literally call him every few weeks and say, hello, you'd come to my university. Is there an opening? And he kept saying to me, okay, darling, call me back on this day. Darling, call me back on this day. And I just kept doing it. If he said Thursdays, 3 p.m., Thursday, 3 p.m., I would call. And I think it was just perseverance. I must have annoyed this person so much that one day he said, darling, there's a war about to break out. Do you know what's happening? Anyway, just come into the BBC now. And, I said, okay, sure. That's the part that I wanted to hear. And I landed up at the BBC. And the funny thing is, till date, I've never met that person who hired me. So, it was just, I just kept pushing for it. And I got there. And I think, that opened doors for me, just pushing myself out there. And so from radio, I moved into television. There was a time I was juggling jobs with the BBC and Al Jazeera as a student. So doing a few shifts at the BBC, a few shifts at Al Jazeera, picking my courses based on, what my time schedule at work would be. And that allowed me to get a lot of on-the-ground training and experience with something that I was super interested in. I also met Tim Sebastian and interned at Hard Talk. I have to be honest, it was so difficult that I did 4 days, and I emailed the editor saying, I think it's really tough for me, and maybe I can come back when I'm a little older. I never went back, but it was interesting nonetheless. And I've moved back to India, I think in 2009. When I had a job then, but it was a great time to move back because the Indian elections were around the corner and Al Jazeera needed somebody here. So that was my return to the country. And ever since, I've set up my company, and we now work for platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Al Jazeera English, the BBC, and audio broadcasters, really. So it's been an interesting journey.
Great. So Priya, your story brings us nicely on to the theme of the webinar today, which is inspiration. And so on this round of questions, I will start maybe with you. what is your understanding of the concept of inspiration? What has been the role that inspiration has played at different points in your journey? And how has your understanding of the idea of inspiration really evolved over time?
I would say inspiration to me is a story of somebody beating the odds. So, for example, if a lot of things are cast in stone for us, we're born into in our country, you're born into a specific job, or that's all you're allowed to do. Or if you're a woman, that's your role in society. And if you really go out and look, there are so many people just breaking that, just completely destroying those social constructs. And I'm very fortunate because when I go out to find my stories, I do a little less of it now as I build teams, but that's the part that I really enjoy, is being on ground, meeting people, keeping my eyes and ears open, and finding these stories of struggle, because therein lies all the inspiration for me. It could be a story of a young girl in an akhara. So we recently did a documentary for Netflix, which looked at Pehelwani. And we went to all these mud akharas in Banaras, which are now going out of fashion because all these gyms are coming up. But the girls in Banaras are now breaking tradition and entering these male-dominated bastions. And they're struggling at home. They're struggling in their schools and colleges because the boys will tease them and nobody's probably going to marry them because she's going to become a pehelwan. All these sorts of things are thrown onto them. And yet there are these young girls out there that know this is what we want to do. Sakshi Malik could do it, so will I. I want to bring a medal home. And if I don't, I still want to do something that my parents are proud of. And to me, that's an inspiring story. And there's so much of it around. We see it in our homes. We see moms struggling day after day, trying to break that. We see, I didn't really have too much of that because my mom works as well and supported my father in business. But I have a lot of aunts that, will probably be in the kitchen for hours put together. I think it's great. I think it's great that women look after homes, and we need to, and if your partner can help, I think that's a bonus. But you've got to do a little more than that. And I think women are pushing their girls now to do that. That to me is inspiration, where, mums and aunties are saying to their daughters, I didn't have it, but I will make sure you have it. That's inspiring to me. And I just think inspiration lies in the smallest of stories. And earlier, when you asked how has that idea of inspiration changed, earlier it used to be a lot about what someone has personally accomplished, or growing up you see, oh, this person has a car, or this person has this sort of a persona. I'm inspired, I want to be like that one day. But as you grow older, I think you realize that inspiration is being there, but then also what you do with that position of power or being in that position. And to me, that's where inspiration is now gradually changing, is I see you on a pedestal, but what are you doing when you're up there? And how mindful are you of your position? And that's what I dig now when I seek inspiration. So,
I love that you said that, Supriya, because I feel sometimes as an educator now, I worry whether we are taking away this idea of beating the odds by making education this way of really catering to everything that the student could possibly want. Right. I remember when we were students, and Umang can correct me here because she has seen me as a student. It was so much about that drive to just beat the odds, right? And that was partly because we went through the public education system, but I feel I worry sometimes that this idea of beating the odds has now been replaced by this highlight reel phenomenon of perfection through social media, right? Like this idea of perfection inspires me rather than this idea of, well, here are my challenges and I'm going to prove stronger than anything that gets in my way. So I love that you said that. And this is also why I see so much value in these conversations, because they're so much more honest and forthcoming. And then rather than this constant bombardment of the news feed on our social media platforms. So I love that you said that. Maria, please talk to us about your understanding of inspiration.
Well, yeah, thank you. To me, Inspiration means to admire someone who follows his or her passion and does what he or she loves. And the people who have inspired me are often those who have led difficult lives, but overcome challenges and all while keeping a smile on their face. And to me, it's about ordinary people feeling passionate about what they do while leaving a legacy. And, growing up, my understanding of inspiration was linked to economic and professional success, as well as people doing extraordinary things. And this has changed because I don't think money, fame, or success are factors that truly make someone inspirational. And for instance, my greatest inspiration is my mother. She only studied primary school and had a really tough life. Growing up. However, she was never bitter about the obstacles that she had to endure. And she always instilled in my sister and I the passion to follow our dreams. She had a small business in her small town where she created dozens of jobs, particularly for women. And inspired by my mom and her struggle, my dream has always been to contribute even in a small way to the development of my country. And that's why I admire people who are passionate and really like what they do. And change makers are also a source of inspiration for me because I think they are full of curiosity and work hard to foster change. And not because they want recognition, but because they want to transform things and empower other people to do the same. And while I accept that, to follow one's passion may also be a privilege in the world where we currently live in, but I'm a strong believer that inspirational leaders can and should also pave the way for others to follow their dreams. I think that generosity is linked to inspiration, and the people that inspire rarely think about themselves. They care about others and they are happy to give of their time and be kind to other people. And they may not be wealthy or successful in a conventional way, but I think they leave a lasting impact on others. And to me, that's what really inspiration is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, from the first time I talked to you, actually, you seem like a very passionate person. But I was also wondering if working in a very structured environment like the foreign service or like diplomacy in general, did you learn something new that inspired you that was unexpected about working in the world of international affairs and diplomacy?
Well, as I mentioned, I just learned that the kinder the people, the more inspirational they are. I've met ambassadors who are very successful in a conventional way, but they are not the nicest. And they don't really inspire other people. And then when you see someone who's kind, generous, and gives their time to help you learn and doesn't see you as a competition but rather as a colleague, then that person becomes super inspirational and really leaves a mark on the people that meets him or her. So I would say kindness and generosity is something that I've learned that really inspires and is useful to really advance in this career.
That's, by the way, the most candid thing a diplomat has ever said. And also, based on your answer, I just realized the world of diplomacy and the world of academia are not all that different based on what you just said. Anyway, enough from me. Umang, please tell us what inspiration means to you.
Okay. I think I mean, whatever Maria and Supriya has said has truly resonated. I mean, I'll just probably reiterate the same thing, but just to highlight what we normally end up confusing inspiration is achievements. The stories that would make an impact. We would just see the impact and we would think, oh, what a great achievement. It may not be, success in that sense of economic gains or whatever, but right from your independence movement or a war story or a rules for radical sort of story where a great social change has been brought about. So that time I think I confused that, and it seemed bigger. I never thought I could be that person who could do that because it seemed so much bigger than, but today, as both our other speakers have said, that inspiration starts from that smallest first step. I've now, after so many years, I've been able to see, and those are the stories which thankfully, at least this part of media is great, that these kind of stories come out. People are making these movies, and they're sharing these stories which sort of somehow land up in front of you on a media or a social media. And similar way, the inspiration, what means for me is exactly same. I mean, against all the odds, you have been able to rise above, and instead of sitting and mopping and finding excuses, oh, I couldn't do this because of this reason, you just decide that this is not going to stop you. You find another alternate, or you find another way to get to achieve the same thing. And my closest inspiration story that I can never stop speaking about is, of course, my mother. I mean, she got married when she was 17 and a half years old, didn't even complete her education. And for her, it was just to get us completely, educationally, financially independent. She has been my strength all along. And 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer. And, the biggest fear that I had that came true, what if something happens? But I got that inspiration from her, that you deal with it. She didn't bet an eyelid. We didn't even want to tell her that it is happening and just go through the treatment. But she just never ever complained. Chemos are the most horrible. I don't wish upon anybody who has to go through this. I mean, you could see her physically suffering, but she never said a word and continued. In peak COVID, there was a relapse, but again, she went through 6 courses of chemo with just compassion and kindness for the rest of the family, that the world that is for her. I mean, for me, that's the truly inspiring thing. I so wanted to be a mother, but that I just decided to be a mother myself without getting married. So it's that inspiring for me. So yeah, this is what it's now, that smallest step, wherever you see that, you find your inspiration in it. Today, only something came on social media in front of me. A 6-year-old boy, while trying to protect his younger sister from dog attack, he got 90 stitches just trying to save her. And the World Boxing Council honored him to be the world champion. I mean, that got me so motivated. I mean, you just, fear of your life doesn't stop you when you know something you have to do, and you just rise up to the occasion and you just do that. So yeah, this is what is inspiring, I find now. Small, little steps people do.
Yeah, what's also amazing about what you said, Umang, was that so much of inspiration is about your outlook, right? Two people could look at the same thing, and one person could be inspired and one person could be totally dejected and frustrated, right? So situations, platforms, events, information that's coming our way is neutral. What makes the difference is what's up here. That's that with the lens with which you are looking at that information or event or situation. And so inspiration is all about the outlook, essentially. Okay. Yes, Supriya, please go for it. You need to unmute yourself first.
Sorry, we're going to have to deal with that a few times.
Yeah.
No, but that was very heartwarming, Umang. It's really nice to know how you're finding strength in your mom's courage to deal with things. And this is what makes us stronger, right? And especially when you see something so close to home, that's what just shakes you and brings you out of your comfort zone. And then I think it's super important for people to talk about that sort of stuff. And, I think earlier people didn't talk about it. And I in fact, for myself, I can say I went through a miscarriage a couple of months ago. And this was right in the midst of filming a program for an international network where I couldn't go out to film, of course, because we were under strict lockdown. So they wanted to film a family in India dealing with COVID, and we were doing that across Asia with different families. So I said, look, I can't go out to film other families, but I'll just film my family. That meant doing all the camera work and then going to every family member. I'm fortunate, I live in a joint family, but everyone played sport. And so I would rock up with my camera every morning, just, planted there, and whatever they were doing, I would keep rolling. So it was a bit annoying for them, but we got through. And it went on for about 3.5 odd months, because we're 5 episodes that we did for this. And in the midst of that, so there's an episode where my husband and I find out that I'm pregnant, and we were really excited and overjoyed, and we shot all of that. And then my husband and I talked about this, that, in India, or maybe elsewhere too, first 3 months, you don't talk about these things. And that's because it could go wrong. And I thought to myself, yes, either we could just pull that out of it, or deal with whatever comes our way. And if it doesn't happen, maybe we should talk about it not happening and what we went through, because this is all about looking at your lives in pandemic times and how you deal with the struggles of everyday life. And I was very, very fortunate in that sense that my husband agreed. And he said, you know what, if you want to talk about it, that's fine. And he did take a little longer to get over these things, because, this was going to be our first baby. And he was a little upset about it, as was I. But I think as women, like, we just deal with these things in our stride. And because you see things around you, it just makes you stronger. And you realize, well, if I've been through something, you talk about it, it will give strength to others. And even if it's one person, if it helps somebody, why not? Because I have a bunch of friends, and now after having my miscarriage, I know about 7 out of 10 of them went through that. But at the time I didn't know. It's just when I said this happened to me, they said, oh, you know what, it happened to me too. And, these are things in passing that we don't share and discuss and talk about, but these sort of things happen. And we seek inspiration when we talk about ourselves. I think that's where it all lies. But I just wanted to interject because, I read something very interesting a few years ago, and that stayed with me, and I pulled it out for our chat today. And it says, become friends with someone who is not your age, hang out with people whose first language isn't the same as yours, get to know someone who doesn't come from your social class. This is how you see the world, and this is how you grow. And that really resonates with me, because the moment you do that, you pull yourself out of your comfort zone, you will see inspiration all around you. So sorry, that's what I wanted to share with everyone.
Love it. Thank you so much. Okay. So for the next question, I really wanted to ask you, well, it's all good to be inspired, but what is the one quality that, in your experience, is essential for translating inspiration into something tangible, a tangible outcome, for it to translate into the realization of your broader vision, or the impact that you want to achieve? So let's start with Maria on this one.
Well, I would say, well, it's a difficult question, but I would say integrity. I don't know, from my perspective, people with integrity are inspirational because they keep their word. They honor their commitments and set examples for other people to follow. And inspirational people are leaders who lead with vision and become role models in a way, because they follow their ethics and try to lead by example. And personally, I don't think we can feel inspired by people who do not live by their principles. I just think that's very difficult. And from my experience working in the government and from what I have seen in companies, the people who inspire and motivate the most are those who are reliable, generous, and, as I mentioned in the previous question, those who treat everyone with respect. And I think people with integrity look in the mirror, recognize their own flaws, and commit to positive change. They inspire their followers to adopt integrity into their own lives too. And I believe that integrity contributes to translate inspiration into tangible outcomes by motivating others to act in a kind way and be true to themselves without demeaning or putting down someone else. And I think that is key. I think people should treat others with respect, and if you put down someone, you will never be a source of inspiration for anyone. So I think that's why I think that integrity is really a key factor for inspiration and for achieving tangible outcomes.
What you just described, Maria, is so amazing because so many organizations really miss this point of how we need to encourage both a goal-driven culture and outcome-driven culture, but also the importance of integrity within that. And that's where I think there's the likelihood of missing the big picture of what long-term impact really means, right? And of what building an organization where everybody is performing at their best and bringing their A game to the table really means. So I wish a lot of organizations follow your philosophy of inspiration plus integrity. Very well said. Umang, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so definitely I agree with Maria. The more important thing for me personally, I mean, integrity, I guess we just sort of, though we find it difficult when it comes to competitiveness, aggressiveness in organizations and all of that, but on the social side of things, I feel it is more about action. It is more about, yes, it affects us. We talk about it instead of just doing living room conversations and discussions about it. Just get up and do what you think needs to be done. I mean, there are researchers, world-class researchers talking about the problems of the world. We are constantly cribbing about corruption, things, and all of this personally affect us. Pollution, sustainable world, we have made those goals for ourselves. But what we don't really see is our own step towards that journey. This, I feel, is what is required, that you get up and you take that step. You start, you're committed, you're driven, it affects you, you're passionate, you're everything, but all of that will not do anything unless you start that journey by just that step. And what I said before, it is that one small step. And before you realize it takes a life of its own, and people start connecting with you, and everything you don't have to do yourself. That is another learning I got. There are people who resonate, whose feelings and emotions start resonating with you, and they start speaking up, as Supriya rightly said. And before you know it, it just becomes a movement, and it takes an energy of its own. So yeah, for me, action is something which is at the base of inspiration.
Action and collective action. Umang, what you just said. Lovely. Yes, Supriya, please.
So I wish I could add a third, but I'm going to think off my feet as we move along. But the one that I had down, I just didn't have it down as action. And thanks, Umang. I'm going to steal your word again and put it in my understanding of things. And to me, yes, action is very important. I just put it down as deep dive, or as Nike would say, just do it. Because, like a Formula One racer, Mario Andretti once said, if you wait, all that happens is that you get older. So, there's so many ideas that we have. I'm guilty of the same. I think, oh, wow, this would be amazing to watch. I want to share this story with people. This is what I want to bring to life. But there's so much stopping me. And that's, you've just got to crack on with it. Ideas are only ideas till you roll them into action. And that's where the magic is. So there's no point sitting on them. You could burn your fingers, but there's learning in it. To give you my personal example, when I came back from England, I wanted to set up a music festival. Of course, you know, I was a journalist and that was great and that was going well for me. And it's my passion as well. So I've stuck with it and I really enjoy it. But I'd gone to a music festival where I saw 300,000 people humming the same song, and that sort of energy is what I wanted to bring back home. And I'd never been to a concert like that in India, where I saw so many people enjoying something like this. And I said, okay, I'm going to do a music festival. And I got together with a bunch of people and we pulled off a music festival in the middle of nowhere in Rajasthan, in the desert, setting it up from scratch. It's called Ragistan. We've done 3 editions of it. I've burnt my fingers terribly, you know, by investing my money, my patience, my time. My parents from the start said, this is not a good business venture. You don't do it. And I said, I want to do it. I want to see what it feels like to do one. And I still have hope somewhere that I will be able to turn it around. But I just wonder, you know, had I not done it, I would have always wondered what, you know, what if I would have done it? What if I would have pulled something like this off? Here, now that I've burnt my fingers, I'm treading with a little bit of caution and I now know how to flip it around and maybe do it a little better. But, you know, that's the idea, is you want to do something, you want to see some change, go do it, because that's what you can do. Don't wait for others to help you with that. So yeah, I think that's what's most important for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also find more in my experience is that it always helps to have a healthy dose of like realism with your inspiration, because a lot of people, this is what makes me really sad. A lot of people feel like it's all or nothing, right? I mean, when you're driven by some sort of purpose, when you set out to bring some change, there you are going to come up against certain organizational or systemic constraints.
Yes.
Does that mean you give up? No. If you work within those constraints, does that mean you're a sellout? No. You know, I mean, I think that the people who manage to make the most sustained long-term aggregate change can equally be people who have worked within the system and have had that integrity and had that working with people and had that inspiring others and taking others with them. And finding the right opportunities to really achieve those breakthroughs that you wanted to in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would also say that, you know, it's important to know that just because you're going in there, you know, it's not going to be all smooth sailing, but
I think setbacks and failures are fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it's like bad relationships. They teach you so much.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the takeaways from those experiences is really what helps you refine your own vision and find the path forward. Okay, great. So just coming to my final question, quickly, lightning round. Who are you listening to, reading, or watching right now in this last 1 year, in this last one memorable year that we're all having, to stay inspired? And we'll go Umang and then Maria and finally Supriya.
Okay, quickly. There's one book that I keep going back to. I really, really enjoy reading it. It's called Sustainable Frontiers by Dr. Wayne Visser. It's about, in a very simple layman language, how we can all work towards making this world sustainable, not high moralistic and unachievable sustainable development goals that people a lot of time criticize about. But it's simply the same thing, that each one of us is a superhero. We have to identify our own expertise. So it could be a catalyst, it could be a facilitator, it could be an educator, whatever that may be, but you are all walking in that one direction. I think that is what I admire about it, and just keep going back to reading that bit. Then what I just finished, as I was telling you, Queen's Gambit is a series on Netflix. It's about an orphan girl who in her orphanage learns chess from a janitor and then goes on to become a chess grandmaster. You know, it's a fiction, but it's truly inspirational. And then she had a bout with drugs and, you know, intoxication and how she struggled through that and rise above all of that to become a grandmaster. So I think these two bits would be most recent.
Well, I have been reading a book called The Gifts of Inspiration by American writer Brené Brown. And she writes about living with courage and how choosing authenticity and worthiness in our current environment is an absolute act of resistance. And I have struggled with perfectionism for a good part of my life. So this book has really inspired me to embrace who I am and to keep following my passion. And I recently read the biography of former Mexican president, Lázaro Cárdenas. In my view, he's one of the greatest leaders in Mexican history, and his legacy is still strong in my country. So reading his biography has been a great source of inspiration for me. And well, these are the two books that I've been reading at the moment and that have kept me busy and inspired.
Thanks, Supriya.
So in terms of reading, nothing super inspirational, but just very unputdownable, as a lot of people would call it. I've been reading about the underworld and crime, and this specific book by an author, Sheila Raval, Godfathers of Crime. And I met her a few days ago in Delhi, and I was super inspired to see how a woman went out there and covered crime back in the 80s and 90s and the sort of stuff that she put herself up for while she was doing that. And the reason being, I recently just produced a series for Netflix called Bad Boy Billionaires, which is about white collar crime. And, you know, it went into some sort of legal hurdle, but it was just a little, because India's not used to stuff like this, at least in my circle. I don't know very many people who would have done stuff like this. So I just wanted to meet other people and see how they've been dealing with things, you know, when they put out harsh truths and inconvenient truths out there. So it was an interesting read, a great person to have met, inspirational for me in many ways. But other than that, on television, I've been watching a series, an American series on Netflix called Last Chance U, which is about a bunch of young boys in college in America, and trying to get into a football team. They don't have very much going for themselves. They come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and just the sort of stuff they put themselves up against. They're not great in studies, but getting into that team is the only hope they have. So it's nice to hear the inspiring stories and the sort of stuff that people put themselves up for, just to get where they want to get.
Cool. I'm going to check all of those resources out. But while you were all speaking, I was reminded of, this was now a few months ago, the thing that I watched that I found most interesting during the whole lockdown period was the documentary, the 4-part, I think, series it was, that Hulu did on Hillary Clinton. And if you haven't checked it out already, do check it out. I mean, leaving all the politics and all of it aside. It was quite remarkable. Just going back to what we said all the way in the beginning about beating the odds. It was quite remarkable of just how long her journey has been, and just how many odds, both on the political and the personal front, that she has beaten. And just to see that, you know, one person can just go through so much over such a long period of time. So the Hulu doc on Hillary Clinton was quite fascinating and well done. Okay, great. So we only have a couple of minutes left, and I'm wondering if Ananya, Pranav, or Shireen have any questions, or if any of the panelists have any final thoughts. Please just unmute yourself and either ask or say what's on your mind.
I'll just wait for a few moments for somebody to ask if.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was so lovely to hear all of you speak about your own personal journeys and put it so simply for all of us out there. And it just gives everyone hope and inspiration, and it's all about resilience at the end of the day. I really liked hearing to your individual stories, and thank you for doing this for us. My question really is to all of you, to all the three panelists, that whenever being a woman and being a professional, you have a certain other lens through which you live life and through which you have an experience within your professional journeys. So does gender play a role in each of your lives to a great extent, and how do you overcome that hurdle, or is that something that is now diminishing over a period of time? Because I see it as a part of my professional journey I've just begun. But does that the role of gender diminish over a period of time or with achievements, or is it something that always stays throughout your professional journey? And I also wanted to share that I read an inspirational book, Becoming, by Michelle Obama, and I found it to be a really good piece of writing, and I found it to be very honest and authentic. So I would recommend that book. Thank you.
Yeah, who wants to go first? Yeah, Supriya, please.
In my personal case, I think I'm a bit of a traditionalist in that sense. I live in a joint family setup, and I am not a feminist because I strongly believe that there are certain roles, and some can just play some roles better. Like, I know I have a good handle on my father-in-law in the house, and I know nobody else can probably get him to be as calm as I can. So, if it means I have to go and spend half an hour with him with a cup of chai in the morning, I'm down for it, because it makes the rest of the day for everyone at home, including myself, super smooth. So although I feel, as a woman, yes, you've got to be able to find that balance. I used to be out in the field a lot covering stories. But now increasingly, I'm trying to hold back a little, get teams in place so that I don't have to spend so much time away. Because if the husband's going to be out and work, and if I asked him to sit at home, it's just going to break him. Like, if he asked me to sit at home, it's going to break me. But I know I can do a few more things with my time at home than he might be able to. So I'm not very precious about these things. And I think what helps is to have a great understanding and just be honest about what you'd like to do and how you'd like to do it. And then finding a middle ground, and not about fighting a big fight, because that's really the biggest battleground, and you've got to know how to play your cards well. So I'd say pick your battles. It can't be very defined roles, but also don't be precious about things, is how I would put it.
Great, thanks. Umang?
Well, we can have a separate session on this altogether.
Yes.
So, yes, gender gap.
Begin?
Yeah. So I'll just quickly, just in few lines, I would say gender gap is real. And I don't know if in our lifetimes that is going to go away. But how I look at gender, see, feminism takes a very negative connotation in today's scenario. But for me, the society has to be gender neutral. I mean, every job, every occupation, or every household chore or whatever, everything has a KPI, key performance indicators. And rightly so, there are some things only women can do. There are some things men can do. There are some things both can do. And the opportunity of both to get there should be open. That is how I look at it. I have faced a lot of these things, continue to face them. But what I have realized is, if you're right, which is why law and understanding the world around you is very, very important. If you're right and completely based on evidence or everything, if you make your pitch, you make it right, nobody can defy what you deserve. I was also told, keeping a guy would have just slept on the, station. I mean, a guy doesn't have to also sleep on a station just because he can, and you don't find his safety issues as more important than women. So I think in the whole protectiveness as a society that we feel, it does a lot more damage than, so we have our families, we have our spaces where we do what only women can do, and we exercise that very rightly. But there are other places, there should not be a discrimination based on this. at Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and at National Legal Awareness, this is one of our objectives that we want to work on. Statistics are very horrible. Women representation in anything you pick up, whether it's judiciary, legal fraternity, governance, legislation, legislators, simple thing like board representation on corporations, it has been made a law, but there is still so much inhibitions, restrictions, and it's all societal, it is all cultural, environmental. If we can't even implement our laws, then I think there's something that needs to be done. So yeah, pick your battle, but go very scientifically about it. People cannot defy anything to you if you are on the sound ground. That's
I agree with what the other panelists say. From my experience, there's still like a huge gender disparity in the Mexican Foreign Service. Only 30% of diplomats are women. And I think it's necessary to include a gender perspective in some professional areas, such as the Mexican Foreign Service. And luckily, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is implementing a feminist foreign policy. We are the first country in Latin America that is implementing such a policy. Norway, Sweden, and Canada are countries that are pioneers in that. And yeah, I think that we need to pick our battles and fight for our right to be represented. But I think that in some cases it is important to have a public policy that supports your right for representation. And I think that in those cases, it's necessary to include a gender perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to add a thought to that, I mean, we find so often that women are doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to conversations about gender in society, right? How about inviting more men into this conversation? And how about men have their own series of conversations about the role of gender? Because as we know, gender disparity hurts everybody across the board, right? Of course, it's hurt women more, but living up to those ossified ideas of gender roles is hurting everybody and is holding all of us back. In the same way, gender violence is always talked about as something that is inflicted on women rather than something that is in the vast majority of instances perpetrated by men, So it's really about even leveling the playing field in terms of the way we're having this conversation, who is having this conversation, right? Because again, the gender conversation itself has become gendered. And so, yeah, that could be something that we should also maybe work towards more. I realize we have slightly overshot our time. That's how fascinating this conversation has been. We are so fortunate to have all of you here together. And honestly, I am like inspired out like hell right now. I want to go out and just like win the world right now or something. Or get another doctorate or something. No, not that inspired.
Another 5 years, Kalyani. At least it will be time well spent.
Well, we would love to hear back from you and have you again come back for a conversation with us. You're also invited to the other two, or certainly to the next. We're still working on the third one, certainly to the next session, which is next Saturday, if you're free. There's going to be 3 other amazing speakers from different parts of the world. I know you're all very busy, but we'll send you the invite. Anyway, thank you so much for today, and see you all soon, and wish you all the very best with rest of this year and the coming year and everything that you're investing in so passionately and working so hard towards. May all your wishes, desires, dreams, goals come true.
Thank you so much. This has been truly delightful experience. I enjoyed hearing everybody. It again brings inspiration and makes you feel that we are all together going towards the right way. Thank you so much for sharing your personal journeys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to hear all your stories, and it's an inspiration for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Kalyani, and thank you, ladies. Yes, been a great evening, and I'm sure our paths will cross at some point with the stuff that we do. So look forward to that.
For sure. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Your day, Maria, and your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.